Have you ever let success or recognition go to your head? How did it change your relationships or the decisions that you made? That is what we are going to be talking about today. What's up? I'm Matt. Welcome to Earth Monster, the storytelling show that celebrates vulnerability and speaks to the darkest, messiest little parts of your heart about the lies that we tell ourselves every day, the stories that we use to get out of bed, the fantasies that we let propel our lives. And if you were the kind of Earth Monster who just can't stop talking about things that happened to you, and then I met this guy and he said this and it made me feel like this, and then I am just becoming a drag on my friends and relationships, maybe you need therapy, or maybe you'd rather listen to a podcast. Subscribe. You found your people. I think I'm talking about myself. My guest today is Amy, and Amy responded to this ad that she found on Craigslist in the Los Angeles area. And Amy tells a killer story. It's kind of like a greatest hits. I talked to her before I really was like figuring out what the show was supposed to feel like, but somehow we kind of covered all the bases. Amy was finding a lot of success from a very early age, and she was getting a lot of attention for this success and the skills that she was able to build. But of course, eventually it goes to all of our heads. You're not special. I mean, maybe you are, but you shouldn't think that you're special. I'm talking to myself. And eventually it went to Amy's head and it all blew up in her face. And she does an awesome job of owning her own ego, taking us through each cringy step of her story. And I hope that you will have the guts to find yourself in this story, because you are there, Earth Monster. We are all there. So without further ado, this is now, Amy has a Christmas tree. I don't know if I talked to her in January. Maybe it was up a little late. I've been talking to these Earth Monsters for a minute, and now Amy's episode is going up. So admire Amy's Christmas tree and think about yourself right now.
So it was my first professional job. I was 20. I was in college and I got signed. This is going to date me, but that's fine. As an XFL cheerleader. It was, for Vince McMahon. It was the cheerleaders. It was this football league that he rolled out, he's re-rolled out. But the first go around, he hired, all these dancers from all over the world, wherever. And I was in New York, and out of like 500 girls, they picked like 12, and I was one of them. And I was getting paid like $100 an hour. I was on television. I was on posters. I was in, arenas with tens of thousands of people. And it got to my head. I felt untouchable. My peer group, my friends that are in college, they're, eating spaghetti and barely, scraping by, and here I'm making $100 an hour. So long story short, it got to my head a lot, as you could imagine. And then also the college I went to, there was a school calendar, and for whatever reason, they decided to make me October. That kind of, the guys were like, oh, that's great. But the girls were kind of, a lot of resentment and jealousy, I was experiencing. I thought it was great, living my dream, getting paid a lot of money. And I quickly also developed when it ended. Okay. Like I was on top of the world, and then it ended.
Yeah. How were you acting when you were on top of the world, though? How did it go to your head? Like, give me some examples where
I was just kind of like, I just kind of felt like I was the shit. You know what I mean? Like I had money. I could go out. I would go to these clubs. I'd get in. I'd get tables. People would buy me bottles. Like it was that. And then it ended, and I wasn't the center of the world's attention anymore. And I was like, what am I going to do next? And I didn't know, because not that I didn't have any skills, but I was so young on the team. Like I just turned 21, and the girls that I was also working with, had been professionals in the entertainment industry for 4 or 5 years. I was a baby. Lucky enough, I had Carla, who was Miss New York, who kind of took me under her wing. She was older than me. She's like, you need headshots and you need an agent and you need a resume. And you got, like, I had nothing built, but I'm like, I knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But the thing was, when it ended, I didn't really have an agent or a built up resume. Like, I had to actually do the work, and I had a budding drinking problem. I kind of leapt into alcohol and drugs. And honestly, by the time I turned 22, I hit rock bottom and I found myself in rehab with a alcohol and drug situation. So that's when I had to check myself into AA and quit drinking and alcohol. And now I went from being on top of the world to being in church basements with people 30 years older than me, getting sober at the age of 21. Yeah.
Wow. Were you trying to like climb back into the next fancy job after?
Absolutely. I knew I wanted to be, well, at the time I wanted to be famous, but I was like, how am I going to do this? I had been dancing since I was 2, and I really wanted to be an actress. And I was going into New York City on these auditions, and they're like, you need to go get some training. But I was going to these auditions with hundreds of people or theater, and, so I said, okay, let me go get some training. So that's when I started going to Broadway Dance Center. His name was Glenn Vincent. He was my first real acting teacher. I started studying Meisner. Then I started doing the work. You know what I mean? Like the real work. I was going to classes and I was paying for classes, and I was studying and building my resume and going on auditions, and I stuck with the dancing. That was my first professional job. But I went from being on the top to getting right size to where I actually was. And the entertainment industry is so amazing because one day you could be in a green room with celebrities on television signing autographs, and the next day I'm getting changed in a fish tank to go do a 30-minute set outside of some random, club for like $30-50 an hour, like going. Like it was just up and down, and that's called paying your dues.
Yeah. I guess what I want to know is getting your like ass handed back to you so quickly when you're like 21. You're in these church basements going to AA all of a sudden. It's like you're at this sort of moment in your life where it's like, I would assume you kind of want to grab the world by the balls and like have it all. And now you're having this very humbling experience. So how did that sort of experience of being like on top and then being on bottom so quickly, how did that influence the rest of your 20s?
I mean, honestly, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I would have never been able to pursue and accomplish all that I have if I was drinking. You can't. You can't. Like if you're really going to be serious about doing whatever it is you're going to do, you need to be focused. You need to be punctual. It's a business. Acting, dancing, coaching, speaking, whatever. You need to be the top of the top, and you got to beat out all the competition. And how are you going to, weekend warriors, people who like spend their money, they go out on the weekend, they come to on Monday, they're at a job they don't like. I mean, somebody who's not doing that, who's just focused and working every day and pounding the pavement, they're going to take you, So I had the blessing of, because I've been 22 years sober now, 23, I don't know, some kind of crazy thing like that. And, I eventually moved to Hollywood, started acting, went back to Las Vegas, danced and acted out there. That's what I do now. Like, I mean, like the acting is like the side thing I do because I love it, but I will not show up to a job unless I'm getting paid a certain amount of money. And that's it.
What did becoming famous mean to you?
That was the ego, because it's not about the fame. That's a byproduct of the hard work. But people don't understand what comes with fame. Like and at the time, because I was so young, it's an attention thing. Like I literally went from like an ugly duckling in high school. I kind of blossomed late in college, and it was like my coming out party. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like I had this untouchable mindset And whatever I did, I succeeded at doing, but it's not always going to be that way. There are going to be the pitfalls. There are going to be the trials and tribulations. You are going to fall. It's how you get back up. Like the entertainment industry, I learned when I got into, West Hollywood, it's not what people think it is. It's really not. And, I have a lot of morals and values that so there's certain things that I just wasn't willing to do. That's why I probably didn't go the distance. I didn't go to those Diddy parties, if you know what I mean.
When you wanted to be famous at 2021, and I'm only calling that out because I love that you said I wanted to be famous. Some people say I wanted to act or I wanted to sing. Some people say I want to be famous. So I'm sort of wondering like where did the desire come from? What had happened before that? Was it being the ugly duckling before that you were like just wanted some shine? Or
I've always been like, as a child, I was a child prodigy, and I used to competitively baton twirl, and I did it for like a Levi commercial. I did it for the president. I was on television. I was always in the spotlight. I grew up on stage in the spotlight with the gratification of a round of applause when you did a job well done. So it was just the next thing. Does that make sense? Like when you're constantly leveling up, like what's the next thing? What's the bigger thing? Like, oh, I just want to be famous. Like it was an attention thing. And I really, if you're a real bona fide artist or actress,
yeah,
well, there are some people that do it for the fame. But if you're really serious about the craft and you really love the work, which I do, it's just understood. You may never get there, but I still love it. And because I have ADD, this is just when you're doing a Meisner exercise, and you're looking at each other and you're doing repetition, you have to be in the moment. You're not up in your head. And for that's peace for somebody like me who doesn't want to be up in your head.
Yeah. Interesting. When did you start the baton?
4 or 5. I did tap, jazz, ballet, and gymnastics from like 2 to like 4 or 5. Then I went to a family party, and my 2 cousins were like making me do these like gymnastic moves, and they had been in this baton twirling thing. So they're like, come over to the gym, check it out. It's the dancing, it's the gymnastics, and it's this baton twirling thing all encompassed. So I went to the gym, I looked around, I watched the girls doing these like amazing tricks where they were throwing the baton in the air, they were flipping underneath it, they were catching it, they were doing exchanges, and I was like, whoa, I'm like, I want to do that. And my mom's like, well, you have to choose. You can't do ballet, tap, and jazz. It's one or the other. I'm like, I want to do that. And I started at like 5 or 6,
What was your biggest dream when you were 11 years old?
Probably to be an actress.
Yeah. 5th grade. Paint the picture for me a little bit. You're 11 years old. You're in 5th grade. You're from Las Vegas?
No, I'm from New Jersey.
You're from New Jersey.
Huh?
Okay. You've been spinning the baton. I can only assume, I'm going to tell you what, if anyone told me that I was a prodigy for anything when I was a kid, that word would have like been the tip of the spear of my ego. Kid, do you relate?
Well,
with that?
It could be because I was the most naturally talented and gifted in the group. And because of that, I was always front and center. I was the alternate for everything because I could pick up all the routines. And it was difficult because when I was 10, I was on a world team with girls that were 18. Now,
Wow.
That's where my ability level was. But mentally, a 10-year-old cannot, gel with 18-year-olds. They were like my big sisters. But here I am spending the majority of my week with these big girls.
Does that just pump you up then? I mean, you're the youngest in the group. You're doing, I mean, like you're thriving.
It was hard. It like, in a sense, yes. But also what was very difficult was I had a stage mom who, when all the girls would be out, having pizza parties at the regional national competitions, I had to go take a nap in my room by myself because I was the one in finals. So, and I was the only one in finals. And like I just remember nights I'd be like crying in the bathroom. Like, you're supposed to be on top of the world, you're winning cups, you're winning. And it was like, I was like a loner. It was like, and my mother would separate me from everybody. And I didn't want to be separated. I just wanted to be like everybody else.
What was the like story that you feel like your mom was telling you through this whole experience of you not just in this story but as like the stage mom? I talk about this idea of like a necessary delusion. We all have these like ideas, these stories that we tell ourselves that kind of get us out of bed in the morning. They drive us through life. Sometimes we're gifted these stories by other people, and I'm just curious, like, what was your mom's sort of narrative for you as the
It
stage
wasn't
mom?
a positive one. And I'll tell you why, because there were different, she meant well, she always meant well, but she didn't understand. So there was solo, one baton, two baton, three baton. You had strut, that's like the marching with a little routine. You had dance twirl. Those were the solo things. And I loved dance twirl and solo. And my mother would constantly tell me, Amy, you need to do two baton because that's the only one that you can win in. And that's not what I love doing. I love doing solo and dance twirl. And it broke my heart that my mother didn't see my talent in the things I love to do. I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. And you're telling me I can. And I was like, F you. Why? And like, I tried even harder in solo and dance twirl because that's what I love to do. And I'm like, you should win in what you love doing, not relegate to what you might be talented in, but it's your second choice. And she was about the win. And my coach was always about trying your hardest. Do you see the difference? Like it's not, it
Yeah.
is, it's very delicate how you teach children in terms of the win or the process towards getting the winning. It's actually both. And that's not
It's
what
the effort.
I was being taught. It's about being in and competing and being a part of. Yeah, it is, but you still need to win. And there was a contradiction in what my parents were trying to teach me and what my coach was trying to teach me. As you get older, you shape, different ideas around these. Because honestly, dance, like later in life, if you're going to be an actress or a dancer, that's all you do is compete. That's what an audition is. It's a huge competition. And you have to go in there and your winning spot is the job.
Does that put a chip on your shoulder then when your mom's telling you to do this thing? You sort of, it seems like your heart, you knew in your heart your mom was wrong even when you were a kid. Does that sort of put a chip on your shoulder by the time we're getting into our adult life? Are we sort of like kind of approaching the world with that chip a
As a
little bit?
child, your parents have the best intentions for you, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they even understand psychologically what's best. They're not given an instruction manual. It did put a chip on my shoulder, and also as a budding alcoholic, and you know what I'm saying? Like that also puts a chip on your shoulder. Um, and you're also a teenager. Teenagers are a really big handful. And it was
Yeah.
interesting because I stopped twirling when I was 14, stopped competing. My coach stopped competing because we had a horrible, horrible situation that happened to us. Basically, the world trip was stolen from us from the judges. It's very corrupt, very political. That's actually why baton twirling is not in the Olympics because it's so corrupt and so political. And that's also a really difficult lesson to teach to a 14-year-old who dedicates their life, that even though you're the best team, you competed better, you did better because there's certain people on the judging panel, you're not going to go to World, even though you deserve to go. That was a very, very, very difficult lesson. My coach decided to quit completely, and the next step would have been to go with a coach from Ohio who we'd have to fly in, put up, rent out an arena, and it just got too expensive. Like it was just way too expensive to really take it to the next level if I really wanted to go compete at World. So I was depressed for like 2 years. And then when I was 16, before I turned 17, I decided I'm going to go into New York and be a professional dancer. So I started taking dance classes in New York before I could even drive. I had my boyfriend at the time drive me into New York City to dance classes. That's when I started. I'm like, this is what I'm doing.
Amy, would you say that you were the kind of like, how would you categorize the chip on your shoulder in your 20s and 30s, maybe?
Well,
Like,
I had the
was it?
chip on my shoulder removed because I was humbled by hitting rock bottom at 21.
I
Not
see.
And, when you get sober, you have to cut off all people, places, and things. So that literally
Mhm.
meant me, like, I was in a sorority. So all of my friends, I had to cut them all off. I had to cut off everybody my age. I think I stopped going to college for a couple years, just to get.
And you really committed to this, huh? You really committed when you went into recovery, even at that early age. It sounds like you really, I mean, you did the whole thing. You really cut people off and committed to this path. What made you commit so hard? I would think that for someone at that age, that would be like a really tall order. And maybe it's like you start the program and then you're like, you know what? Maybe I just go back and drink a little bit.
If you have the blessing of rock bottom, you will do anything to never get there ever again. And so whatever
Can
they said to me, if they told me you're going to go up to the fifth floor, stand on your head naked for 24 hours, okay. Because that's just where I was. And I just knew I wanted more for myself. And I just kind of, maybe because I was such an outlier in terms of I had that experience getting famous so quickly and then pummeling to the bottom so quickly, I just
Mhm.
kind of knew I was destined for more, and, it really wasn't meant for me to understand why I had to cut everybody out. I just kind of knew that if that's what I was told I had to do to really get what I wanted out of life, then I was willing to do that. And all I wanted was to just never drink again. That's all that I wanted.
Do you feel comfortable describing what rock bottom for you was
Sure.
like?
Yeah. Yeah. It was hell. It was hell. It
What
was
was the
also
experience? What happened?
me trying to stop drinking and not being able to, and like spending all my money and not going to class anymore, and my parents fed up with me and getting kicked out of the house, and my sisters being fed up with me. Everybody was fed up with Amy because I was just behaving in a manner that I knew wasn't me. This is at the core who I am. I'm a loving, caring, responsible person who, and I just kept doing what I didn't want to do over and over and over again. And I'm like, I'm out of control and this feels terrible. I just didn't want to feel that way anymore.
What did out of control look like? I mean, where were you drinking? What was your routine? What was your
I
drinking
would I would
routine?
literally come home after being at a club all night long. And at the time I was working for my dad. And I would show up to my dad's office and then I'd go and puke in the bathroom. Like in my dad's small little office where I was a secretary. And bless my parents, for like going through that with me because I couldn't stop. And, I just remembered I had just gone out. It was like a Sunday night, or I don't remember what it was. It was Saturday or Sunday night. And I was working at this stupid pub and I showed up like strung out, and I just remember being in the kitchen and looking to my right, and this guy comes in, he's like, Amy, Amy, Amy. And I'm like, I know he's doing some type of psychological thing on me to see if I'm like on drugs or alcohol or something. And this is my brain. And I'm like, I know my reaction is going to be what he's looking for because I have no control over my body right now. So I'm going to react the way he's looking for because I'm under the influence. And I just remember I went to the bartender and I'm like, I quit. I can't do this anymore. But when I said that, I wasn't just quitting the job. I was quitting the drugs and the alcohol. And he didn't, but that I'm like, I quit. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm done. And he's like, well, I'm like, no. And I drove home that night and I was up all night long. And then I went downstairs to my mom. I said, Mom, I'm like, I am on A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I'm like, you need to put me in the car right now and drive me to the hospital. I need to get help. Yeah.
Wow. Excuse me. It's so rare, I think, in life that the realization moment is actually one moment, right? Like you see that in a movie where it's like she goes up to the bar and she goes, I quit. And then that's it. But so many times in life, then you go home, then you wake up the next day, you're like, maybe I drink today. It's like it tends to be like the accumulation of a lot of those moments that sort of lead us to, to self-realizing things or something like that. But for you, it was just the one moment. It's pretty
They
exceptional.
call it divine intervention.
I think that that's what I'm trying to get to. I think that that's the moment that I'm trying to understand what was the divine intervention. I can tell that you were behaving as someone that you had never seen yourself as, right? So I guess I'm trying to like concentrate that idea, like what was the, if we boiled that down, what's the shocking moment to Amy that makes you do something like that? Let me ask you this. Are there a lot of times in your life when you feel like you were out of control? Maybe that is enough to sort of sober you if you're the kind of person who keeps a lot of control over yourself most of the time, then maybe having an experience like that is very jarring. For those of us who maybe feel like a little bit more out of control more often, maybe it's going to take me a couple more of those moments to sort of really make it stick.
There were some really bad moments in my drinking history where if I told you, you know what I'm saying, you'd be like, that wasn't the moment you decided to quit. That didn't make you quit. It was literally just another day. Wasn't anything like there were so many car accidents. There were so many spending all my money, not knowing where my car is, waking up, not knowing where I am with people I didn't know, not knowing how I was going to get home. You would think a situation like that might,
Yeah,
it was, and I even remember a couple specific times, like running to a church, trying to get in to pray to God. And I couldn't, like, there was this one particular time the gates were just locked and I couldn't get in. I just wanted to get in, and I was praying to God at the time. I'm like, God, help me.
Was this was like a year?
Yeah. I hit bottom so fast. It takes people decades. Like, honestly, I'm dealing with my dad right now. He's a major alcoholic and he just will refuse. And we're talking, I had a call from my mom a couple weeks ago. He drank 2 bottles of wine. He fell into the 55-inch television, shattered it. A lamp fell on top of him. She had to call 911. He refused to go to the hospital to get looked at. Now, mind you, he's like 70 something.
Right.
And I'm like, we're talking regular trips to the hospital. He broke 11 ribs down at my sister's. He fell in the kitchen. He was there laid up for like a couple months. I've had a couple 911 phone calls from my house when he comes and stays here with me. Repetitive. And he hasn't hit his bottom. He's 70 something. It takes some people, sometimes they may never reach bottom. So it's really viewed as a gift if you get sober.
Yeah.
Because it is so hard to put it down because when the chemicals in your body, you want more, you crave more. And it's like, it's almost chemically out of your control. It really is something of another world. That's like, we're done.
So after that, so you get sober. What a gift. It was only 1 year. I mean, you got to look back at that as maybe one of the most important years of your life.
Yeah.
Right. And then you also had this like big spike of success really early on too. So I guess I'm wondering, like, in the wake of all of that, what becomes your North Star? What becomes the thing that you're driven towards? What are you trying to do? You said acting. So if it was acting, then tell me what the peak dream was. Like, what was the dream that was driving you?
I wanted to be a Nick City dancer. I always wanted to be a Nick City dancer. And because I think in the back of my mind, I thought that would get me to the next level of fame. The ultimate goal was to be a rich and famous actress. And I auditioned for that team like 5 or 6 times. You know what I mean? And it was the final time. And it was at the beginning of the reality show Making of the Teens. When reality shows first started, I was one of the first reality shows, and I was one of the girls that they followed. Now, when they're following you with a camera, going through the whole audition process, you're not thinking you're not going to be the one who makes it. You're thinking you're going to be
Right.
the one who makes it. That's why they're following you. And I happened to be the girl that didn't make it. And I have a little
Wow.
bit of balls. So I went up to the manager and I asked her, I'm like, why didn't I make it? And she's like, well, she's like, you put on a little weight. And I was like, oh, okay. And I decided to hang my dancing shoes up, quit dancing, got in a car with my friend from my acting class who just got a manager. He was moving out to Hollywood. I'm like, I'll go for the ride with you. We'll cross the country. You know, he didn't want to be alone. And then I'll check things out in Hollywood. I'll put a plan together. I'll go back to Jersey and figure things out. Long story short, I drove across the country with him, got to Hollywood. He turned out to be a nightmare. I decided I wanted to stay. I gave myself a week. I got a job and a place to live, and I stayed.
That was it. You stayed, and you're still in Los Angeles.
I was there for 3 years, you know,
Mhm.
doing whatever an actor does out there, every other job but acting. You know, I did a couple things here and there, like cool things. I just realized I wasn't done dancing and I needed money. And people just kept saying, go out to Las Vegas, go dance in Las Vegas, you know? And I'm like, I heard the Pussycat Dolls were hiring in Las Vegas and I auditioned for them like 5 times. So I'm like, I'll go out. And actually, I missed their audition because I didn't have enough gas money to get there. But there was another audition for the talent agency that was hiring them. I'm like, I'll go to that audition. And I scraped up enough money together to go out to Las Vegas. I did the audition for the talent company, got hired. And then I grabbed like 12 girls' phone numbers. And because we were like go-going at the time. Like there was, you know, go-going in all the different casinos. And I called every single one of them that week. And I'm like, who needs a night off? And there were a couple girls that needed a night off. And then I started doing what everybody said the actors do in LA. They work in Las Vegas on the weekends and then they come to LA during the week. And that's what I started doing.
Wow, that's a grind going back and forth between the
It was
the
a
two
lot.
cities.
I did it weekly for like 6 months. And then I decided I was just working more in Las Vegas and making more money that I needed to establish myself out there. So that's what I did. That's when I made the move to Las Vegas. And I've been here pretty much ever since. However, it's only a 4.5-hour ride. So I go back and forth all the time.
You're still in Las Vegas and still going back
Yeah.
and forth. Wow. Amy, if you were going to share a lesson what's a lesson that you've learned in your life, advice that you've gotten in your life or something like that you would like gift to almost anyone?
In terms of what? Like life?
Life, yeah. I'm looking for
Discipline.
universal.
Yeah. It's boring. Discipline is going to get you the results that you're looking for because that's the work that most are not willing to do.
Can you give me a quick version of how you learned that lesson? Why that has become sort of the paramount of your advice to impart?
So because I didn't make the team and I was told I was fat, I started working in gyms. I mean, I worked in gyms before then, but I started working in gyms out in LA and I decided I was going to do some fitness competitions because I always wanted a flat stomach. And if there was one thing that I never had and I would lose jobs over, it was my weight. I wasn't fat by any means, but I didn't have that tight toned body that I always wanted. Long story short, I did 7 fitness competitions and the first one I did just to get the tight body, but I came in 5th out of 6. I'm like, this is stupid. I put all this work and effort in and I came in next to last place. F this. Then I moved to Las Vegas and I realized that they had Miss Bikini Universe out here. And it was a little more fun because there were 2 categories. There was the bikini category and the costume category. I said, let me just enter it for fun. So I did it for a couple years. I placed pretty well. The first year I was like 26 out of 40. The second year I made top 10. And then one year I did it and like I got off focus because I had a guy mess me up. And I said, if I'm really going to be doing this, I'm going to do this. So I hired a bunch of coaches. I decided to brand myself as a fitness coach. And he's like, you got to get top 3. I said, okay. He's like, for people to listen to you and be an authority, you need to get top 3 and write a book. So I wrote the book, went to the fitness competition. I didn't get top 3. I won. I won this international
You
fitness
wrote a book?
competition.
Wait. Let's pause on the book, Amy. You wrote a
I wrote
book?
a book. It was a small little book. It was 7 steps.
I did one draft. We published it. My mom
Yeah,
read
it
it.
was, it was a book to, create authority. It was hard. It's not easy writing a book by any means. Wrote the book, put the website together, put the webpage together, won the international fitness competition. And once you do something once, then you start repeatedly. I won the second one I did. So I would have never achieved, and it was just the next level of fitness, next level of discipline, next level of focus. Once you start leveling up in life, what's the next? What's the next? What's the next? And the only way to achieve that is by discipline. That's the secret sauce.
Tips for discipline. You got any good tips for how to get disciplined?
Planning. It's being very planned, very scheduled. You have to schedule things. You got to plan things. You have to listen to doing things that are hard, that you don't want to do, that are being suggested to you. Absolutely get a coach of some kind. You need somebody who has walked that path before you, that you have not worked. So, they did it. You can do it too. It's being true to your word and sticking to what you say you're going to do.
I love it. Amy, you left a lot with me today. I'll tell you what, it all really resonated. So I appreciate that. Do I have your permission to share this conversation on the podcast, online? I'm planning to chop it up into short videos and that
Absolutely.
kind of thing.
Go for it. Yeah, that's why I'm here, right? Hopefully it helps somebody. Hopefully my story was able to help somebody else.
Wasn't she great? She just put herself out there completely. Nothing to hide, but not in obnoxious, performative way, Earth Monster. She just really kind of owned up to it. I love it. Because being completely authentic, maybe not the goal. We want you to be authentic, but we can't take all of you. Your authenticity is obnoxious, Earth Monster. I'm going off on a tangent. Honestly, I think we're talking about Amy. Amy was fantastic, and I thought that she really owned it. She owned the whole journey. You can tell that she's gone through it and found herself in the end. It's admirable because you can tell that she knows who she is and she feels confident in who she is. And it's awesome. I think that's all that any of us can really hope for. Did you find a piece of yourself? Did you? What think about a time when your ego blew up in your face. Take a minute, think about it. No, think about another real time when your ego blew up in your face. If you're not coming up with an answer, you're not thinking hard enough. And I hope that you will take the question with you because it's fun. It's helpful. And fleshing out some of these greatest hits delusions, it can really show you a lot about yourself. It can help you make the adjustments that you need to make to be a better you. Is this getting too self-helpy? I don't know. I think I'm doing this for myself, honestly. I think I do all of this for myself. So come along for the ride. And here's my homework then, I guess, which is to think about the kind of Earth Monster you want to be. Get an idea and hang on to it tight like a dog with the bone. Think it, feed it, do it. And don't forget to subscribe to the show because I have got just an endless stream of wise, interesting, compelling, real human Earth monsters that are coming right here to tell us stories about their real lives. And you are in all of them if you look for it. So come on back. And we will be back next week with more epic everyday stories of success and redemption. You'll see me next time.